This young man had just finished his military service and was discharged, but he was quite uncertain about his future and didn't know what to do next. Li Tang decided to go to university, following the path many young people take after discharge. However, his mind was wandering to distant Canada. He returned to his dilapidated rented apartment and constantly watched videos of trips to the Rocky Mountains, a place he longed to visit. At this time, he received the canvas painting of the Rocky Mountains he had bought, but he didn't even have a hammer to hang it. That evening, while Li Tang was working at the convenience store, two customers came in. A drunk man walked in and asked Li Tang for a pack of cigarettes. Seeing the warning that cigarettes could burn your private parts, he asked for a different brand. Then he threw down some loose change to pay. He also made a very sensitive gesture that greatly annoyed Li Tang. He went outside and demanded that Li Tang bring him beer and dried squid. Li Tang immediately chased after him, saying he needed to go to the checkout counter first and wait to receive his order. The man accompanying him prevented the old man from scolding Li Tang. Then he himself went into the convenience store and chose the food and drinks he needed, behaving very politely. He also told his friend not to cause any more trouble in the supermarket. Afterwards, Li Tang was disgusted with the mess the two men had left behind. When the shift ended, the store manager came to take over. Li Tang asked to borrow a hammer, but the store manager had gone inside and didn't hear him. Then Li Tang walked home down a deserted alley. Suddenly, he saw a drunk old man lying slumped on the ground. Thinking the old man was just there because he'd drunk too much, Li Tang left. After walking a short distance, Li Tang saw the old man's friend walking away. So Li Tang asked the man to take his friend home because the forecast predicted rain. The man told Li Tang to leave and continued walking. Li Tang then showed him the sensitive symbol the old man had thrown at him earlier. The man turned around and slapped Li Tang repeatedly in the face. While hitting him, he cursed at Li Tang with harsh words. Li Tang recalled a memory from his high school days. Back then, he and Song Han had been bullied by three friends. One of them kicked him to the ground and then stomped hard on his face. Now, Li Tang was being stomped on in the face by this same thug. This time, Li Tang decided to fight back, so he picked up a hammer and coldly brought it down. Then it started to rain. The thug struggled to his feet and took a few unsteady steps before collapsing to the ground. Li Tang was terrified and saw two men approaching, but they turned back. Suddenly, a woman wearing sunglasses and a dog appeared nearby. The dog then led the woman past Li Tang, wearing a guide dog band around her. The dog approached the fallen man's body. Then it led the woman with sunglasses away. Li Tang quickly picked up his bag and hurried away from the scene. He ran home and rushed into the bathroom to clean off all the blood on his body. Then the image of the man from earlier flashed through his mind, constantly blaming Li Tang. Li Tang imagined himself being arrested by the police. In the disappointed eyes of his parents and older sister, his mother fainted from shock. Then Song Han knocked on the door, asking to sleep over for the night because he was too drunk. Li Tang began researching how long the prison sentence was for manslaughter. Suddenly, he heard the siren of a police car outside. He looked out and saw someone being escorted into a police car for fighting. Li Tang then wondered what had become of the three kids who had bullied him and his brother in high school. He suspected they were still living like useless fools. Song Han replied that they were very successful. One had just shown off his new car on Instagram, another had passed the 7th level civil service exam, and the third had a happy family. Li Tang then recalled that before enlisting, he had dated a girl in the Go Club, but his girlfriend hadn't found out. In high school, he had stolen Song Han's tablet, but it had gone unnoticed. Perhaps everything was working in his favor. Li Tang wanted to create an alibi, so he told Song Han that he arrived at 10 o'clock at night, but Song Han insisted that he entered the house at 11 o'clock. Now Li Tang remembered that he had left the hammer he borrowed at the convenience store at the scene. The next day, Detective Zhang went to the scene where the thug had died to investigate and found a bag of items purchased from the convenience store belonging to the man. Li Tang was at home when he received a call from the convenience store manager asking him to come in for a shift because the female employee was busy and couldn't come. Li Tang peeked out the door but didn't dare go outside. At that moment, Detective Zhang also entered the convenience store and asked the manager to let him copy the surveillance camera footage. When Detective Zhang went outside, he saw two students walking by and running up to ask to borrow his lighter. When they heard his rather curt reply, one of the guys tried to pick a fight. Later, they discovered he was a police officer. Both were invited to the police station for questioning and even received a piece of chewing gum stuck in their hair. The two male students were given a stern lecture by the police. Detective Zhang reviewed the security camera footage and saw that Li Jianghoon had visited the supermarket the previous night. When he saw the supermarket employee pick up a hammer, a fly blocked the camera. Then he saw the young man leaving with his backpack. Detective Zhang returned to the convenience store and asked the manager who the male employee on duty last last night was. Just then, Li Tang arrived for work. The store owner said the police were looking for him. Detective Zhang then took Li Tang outside to talk. He said the two men had made vulgar gestures at him, thrown money down, and forced him to serve them. They left without cleaning up, so he killed them? When Li Tang expressed surprise, Detective Zhang chuckled and said, "I was just joking." He then asked Li Tang what he had overheard their conversation. Li Tang replied that they were talking about family. The man said he had a hard time at home with his elderly mother and 3 children. Suddenly, his subordinate, Zhang Jie, ran in and informed Detective Zhang that they had identified the fingerprints. They had killed each other. A witness had seen them fighting while drunk. One man had struck first with a brick, while the other used a loudspeaker to defend himself. As they were leaving in the car, Detective Zhang scolded Officer Zhang Jie for revealing details of the case in front of the witness. Li Tang walked back to the alley where the murder had taken place the previous night, only to see that someone was just now repairing the surveillance cameras. Li Ganghun's wife was summoned to the police station to give a statement. The woman recounted that 3 years ago, her husband brought Kim Hongjin home, claiming he was his colleague. Hongjin was quite amiable and friendly. He was close to their child and always gave them pocket money. He even remembered her birthday, while her husband never did. He was only immersed in drinking. Hongjin also always spoke sweetly to her. Then, what was bound to happen, happened. He went into her room and closed the door. Then the two of them did something inappropriate together. Afterwards, the police felt that the reason for the conflict leading to the murder between Hongjin and Ganghun was quite plausible. Detective Zhang immediately asked his 2 colleagues to investigate Hongjin's background. He seemed to have seen this person somewhere before. That evening, while Detective Zhang was sitting alone at the police station, his colleague rushed in to inform him that Hongjin had faked everything from his age to his background. He was So Bu Huin, a man wanted since 2009. This was truly karma. Meanwhile, Li Tang, while eating with his friend Zhang Han, heard the news report about the murder in the alley a few days earlier. The identity of Kim Hongjin, the victim in the case, had been confirmed. After DNA testing, the police realized he was the suspect in the 2009 serial murders. His name was Seo Bu Huin. He suffered from a personality disorder, was very skilled at psychological manipulation, and was adept at lying and disguising himself. Previously, he had killed an entire family for insurance money and committed many other murders with concealed bodies. The next day, Li Tang left the house. He felt temporarily relieved because none of the details of the case were related to him. Hongjin was also someone who deserved to die, but unexpectedly, at the residence of the woman wearing dark glasses, he found the hammer that Li Tang had used in the previous murders. The next day, Li Tang bought a new phone and went to the convenience store to relieve his female colleague. There, he encountered the girl wearing glasses who came to buy cigarettes. She demanded 2 million won in cash from Li Tang, saying she could still see and showing him her severely burned eye. She then asked how he felt about killing someone. After forcing him to pay on time, she left with her dog. Li Tang was terrified. He rushed back to the phone store to return his new phone. But the store owner said he couldn't help because Li Tang had already removed the screen protector. If he wanted to sell it, he would have to pay off his installments before he could resell it at the used price. Li Tang checked his bank account and found only 192,000 won left. He then looked for extra work to cover his expenses, but he only encountered fraudulent websites. Li Tang went to the convenience store manager to ask for an advance on his monthly salary. However, the manager said that last year he had given an employee an advance, and that employee had run away. Since then, he hadn't given anyone an advance. But after much pleading, Li Tang received nearly 1 million won in advance. However, it wasn't enough to cover the amount the girl was asking for. Li Tang went home, retrieved his mother's savings passbook, intended for buying a house, and quickly left. He then went to the bank and closed the account. Li Tang carried the bag of money to the supermarket to work, constantly watching the door to see if the girl with the dark glasses would appear. That evening, the manager came to him and said that he had seen a very strange girl earlier. He thought she was blind, but he had a feeling she was watching him. Li Tang immediately ran outside to search and found a cigarette pack on the table, along with a note arranging a meeting at noon the next day at a house with a blue gate. The next day, Li Tang went to the house to meet the girl with the black glasses. She made him a cup of coffee and said she hated people, which is why she went for a walk at night. Unfortunately, she found dead men. She asked if he had killed both men. He shook his head. Then he laid out the money for this devious girl to count, but she demanded that Li Tang give her the same amount every month. Seeing Li Tang's frustration, she took out a hammer and accused him of making her an accomplice. Who would dare take such a risk for just 2 million won? She demanded that he pay the full amount by the end of the month, not a single penny less, so that his secret could remain buried. Li Tang was furious. He snatched the hammer and said he would only give her 2 million won and take it back. As he was leaving, morning, she asked if he was a student in the 18th year of Yeoljong University. He wants to ruin his sister's upcoming wedding, doesn't he? His mother goes to church a lot, doesn't she? I'm sure she won't dare go to church anymore soon. Lee Tang heard this and turned around. She took off her sunglasses so Lee Tang could clearly see her damaged eye. Then she continued to threaten him. Lee Tang then begged her to help him. He felt like a dog trapped by her. Every time she beckoned, he had to run as fast as he could on all fours. He decided he couldn't let her threaten him for the rest of his life, so he picked up a hammer and brought it down with one swift blow. This made it impossible for her to close her eyes anymore. After that, Lee Tang gathered all the money and quickly left the house. The door was closed behind him. The dog then ran to its owner and licked her all over. Days passed like that, and each day, 2 cartons of milk were delivered to the house. The delivery man found it strange that no one brought the cartons inside, so he jumped up to look through the wall. He then witnessed the horrific events inside. Officer Park was examining the crime scene. Detective Jiang and his colleagues went inside to collect DNA samples. Detective Jiang found 2 life insurance policies in a drawer. Outside, many police officers were chasing a guide dog. The dog then began digging something. The police discovered a skull underneath. Later, they recovered 2 skeletons. The victim was named Seojan Ok. The victim's body and the 2 skeletons were being examined by forensic experts. The forensic team then reported to Officer Park that there were no fingerprints of anyone else on the teapot and the plastic coffee cup. The coffee samples also contained no DNA other than that of the victim. The area was covered in dog saliva. The dog must have licked everything with fingerprints on it, from the doorknob to the table and the floor. Lee Tang went home and lay on the floor. The image of that girl kept appearing everywhere. He checked his phone and saw that the convenience store manager had called him many times. He considered a negative escape but lacked the courage. He was about to try again when he heard a knock on the door. His friend, Song Han. Lee Tang went to open the door and threw Song Han some money to get him to leave. Then Song Han hit Lee Tang for daring to disrespect his friend. Lee Tang now admitted that he had stolen Song Han's tablet back in high school. Song Han said he already knew about it, but he pretended not to know because he noticed Lee Tang had started treating him better after that incident. At dinner time, Officer Park was taking his guide dog to a medical center for a health checkup when the dog smelled something and started barking loudly in front of a karaoke bar. Lee Tang was also sitting alone inside the bar. He then received a text message from a police officer informing him that he had been sued by the convenience store manager for unpaid wages. Meanwhile, downstairs, 2 students who had previously been arrested by Detective Jiang were looking at him, determined to get revenge. One of them, carrying a bottle of liquor, was stopped by his accomplice. However, the students still stabbed Officer Park with the broken bottle. The dog fled. The 2 male students also escaped, leaving Officer Park lying on the ground. Lee Tang walked out of the karaoke bar and read a newspaper article about a blind girl who had died after being found to have murdered both her parents. Lee Tang realized that both men he had attacked deserved to die. The police still hadn't found any evidence. He was luckier than winning the lottery. 2 men were walking down a dark alley when they saw Lee Tang approaching. As Lee Tang listened to their constant insults and abuse, goosebumps rose on his neck. This had happened before when he was about to attack those 2 men. The next morning, they lay motionless in a deserted open field. Lee Tang woke up to find his face covered in blood, a brick lying beside him, along with a hammer and a note saying, "Call me if you need help," with the nickname "Only for Hero." Previously, Sojun Ok was a rebellious girl who loved to hang out with friends. Once, while sitting in a room with 3 friends and a pile of gas cylinders, John Ok used a lighter to light a cigarette. Afterward, the room was engulfed in flames, causing her to lose sight in one eye. Sometime later, she planned to use the same method to harm her parents, but her mother suddenly smelled a strong gas odor and woke up. So John Ok changed her plan to claim her parents' huge life insurance money. Afterward, she chose the garden as her final resting place. Detective John read an article by someone claiming to be Sojun Ok's cousin, who repeatedly urged her to kill her. So Detective Jiang and his colleague went to a factory to find the girl. The girl admitted to writing the article. She showed the 2 detectives a scar on her face and said that in elementary school, John Ok had thrown boiling water in her face. That was John Ok's nature. John Ok used the excuse that she had tampered with his belongings to try and kill her. After doing so, he even laughed gleefully. Police officer Park Bae-jeon was also discharged from the hospital after being stabbed the previous night. He was surrounded by colleagues congratulating him on surviving a near-death experience. Later, he took his picture to his boss and asked for early retirement. His wife was worried that if he continued working as a police officer, he wouldn't know when he would die. He planned to open a Japanese goods store to make ends meet. Detective John went to the funeral of one of the 2 high school students who had stabbed Officer Park, but the mother slapped him in the face. She refused to allow an autopsy on her son's body. She berated the police, calling them useless for not having caught the culprit who killed her son. Detective Jang went to his car and told his colleague that her son had once been one of the culprits. He had once handled a case involving a middle school girl named Kang Jong-seo. She always carried a camera. She also fell under the gaze of Kang and Lee. One evening, the two of them took Jong-seo to a grassy area and sexually assaulted her. Jong-seo was deeply traumatized. A month later, she did something reckless. However, the mother had just disrupted the funeral and repeatedly claimed that Jong-seo had voluntarily offered herself to her son. She demanded that Jong-seo's father mediate. The woman confidently spoke ill of Jong-seo right at her own funeral, enraging her relatives, but she still wouldn't stop. Then, her son escaped punishment because he was a minor. Jong-seo's father, however, had to live the rest of his life in resentment. After that, not a day went by without them fighting and stealing. Upon hearing this, Jong-jae said he would go see Jong-seo's parents because it was very possible that the father had attacked the two young men to get justice for his daughter. Detective Jang went to the convenience store to investigate Jong-seo's previous appearance there. The manager said that their store's cameras only recorded for 5 days before being deleted. When Detective Jang inquired about Lee Tang, the manager said he had taken an advance on his salary and then run away. It seemed he had been anxiously waiting for the blind girl the night before. Lee Tang decided to contact someone with the nickname Only for Hero, and he was immediately invited to a secret group chat. All messages in this group would automatically delete after 3 seconds. When he saw that the person had called him by his name, Lee Tang immediately blocked their contact. Then, someone rang the doorbell. Lee Tang peeked through the crack in the door and saw it was the mailman. He opened the letter and found it was a police summons. Lee Tang had embezzled an advance on his salary from the convenience store owner. Jong-jae drove to the house where the high school student Jong-seo used to live. Her father, Kang Sang-mook, led Jong-jae inside to see the room his daughter used to live in. There were pictures of Jong-seo with her friends. Her father also said that the girl was very kind and compassionate, so he killed both of them. The father was immediately arrested and taken to the police station for questioning. He said he used a brick to hit them. He saw the two men staggering, so he thought his chance had come. Then, Jong-jae showed the interrogation results to Detective Jang, confirming that Sang-mook had attacked the two young men to avenge his daughter. Detective Jang took the statement and went into the room to meet Sang-mook, asking him to sign the statement confirming the testimony. Detective Jang invited Sang-mook outside for a cigarette, but Sang-mook said he had quit smoking a long time ago. Unexpectedly, Detective Jang asked if he hadn't killed them since he didn't smoke, but the victims had cigarette burns on their faces and he wasn't right-handed. The boss then asked Detective Jang to leave to talk. He reprimanded Detective Jang for ruining everything because Sang-mook's motive was too plausible. But Detective Jang insisted the perpetrator used his right hand to hit the victims with the brick. He was definitely hiding something, so they needed to find out why. Lee Tang decided to call the Criminal Investigation Department of the police station to confess. The police looked up Lee Tang's name and thought he was confessing because he had just received a summons. He arranged for Lee Tang to come to the police station at 9 p.m. tonight to cooperate with the investigation. He put money in 2 envelopes to return to his mother and the convenience store manager. He put a cigarette butt and the 2 pieces of evidence he used in the crime into his bag. Detective Jang received a text message notifying him that Lee Tang had scheduled to arrive at 9 p.m. Later, Jong-jae reported that he had informed the mothers of the 2 student victims that the culprit had been found. Sang-mook had also just been released and returned home. Now, Sang-mook's father was leaving the police station, and it turned out that he had received a box of superhero toy cars. But when he opened it, he found a sharp knife inside. That night, he followed the 2 male students who had assaulted his daughter with the knife and received a message from the nickname Only for Hero, telling him to do as he had practiced and that he would take care of the rest. He was trembling all over and didn't dare act, but when he looked around, the 2 students were gone. Suddenly, the father was hit hard by a car. Detective Jang and Jong-jae rushed out and found that the person in the car was the mother of one of the murdered students. Lee Tang went to an ATM and put some money in to return to his mother. As he stepped out, he was suddenly robbed of his bag by 2 men on a motorcycle, causing him to fall. The robbers sped onto a bridge. After taking the remaining money from the envelope, they threw the bag into the river. Lee Tang was taken to an ambulance, and the police recorded the robbery. All the evidence he had left to confess was now gone. Lee Tang was taken to the hospital where Sang-mook was being treated. Detective Jang continued to ask if he intended to take all the blame for the perpetrator, but he said he had taken matters into his own hands to make the 2 men pay for daring to do that to his daughter. That made him feel relieved. Detective Jang said that if he was going to make them pay, he should do it within the bounds of the law. Then Detective Detective Jiang left. Li Tang had his wounds bandaged by a nurse. San Mook was wheeled outside by a nurse to enjoy the view for a while. Then he received a message from Only for Hero. I will respect your decision. Thank you for everything. Suddenly, he saw Li Tang walking out. At that moment, the police officer was also on his phone, so he decided to follow the young man in his wheelchair. Then he tripped and fell. Li Tang turned back to check on him, but Sang Mook told him to hurry up. There were police officers here. Li Tang immediately asked Sang Mook if he was the one who sent the message. Sang Mook replied that it wasn't him. He said everything would be explained on Telegram. He told him to hurry and go, thanking him. Then Li Tang quickly ran down the stairs. He was spotted by Detective Jiang, who called the investigation department to ask if Li Tang had turned himself in yet. Sang Mook returned to his hospital room and watched a childhood video of his daughter, recalling the moment she asked him to quit smoking. He then grabbed a handful of pills, put them in his mouth, and collapsed to the ground. The truth was, the night before, Sang Mook had seen Li Tang fighting with two male students. Li Tang tried to attack with a brick, but one of them lunged at him, sending them both tumbling into an open field. Li Tang was repeatedly hit by this guy, but he managed to grab a brick and hit him on the head. The other guy woke up and attacked, but was also subdued by Li Tang's brick. Then he was executed, and Li Tang fainted. Detective John was chasing Li Tang when he received a call from a nurse at the hospital informing him of Sang Mook's condition. Li Tang managed to escape. The two detectives rushed back to the hospital and found Sang Mook being treated. Li Tang opened Telegram and saw that the Only for Hero account had been deleted. Previously, Sang Mook and another person had helped Li Tang home after he had subdued the two male students. Before that, Sang Mook had told this mysterious person that after jumping, his daughter had suffered 16 hours of pain in the hospital before dying. He desperately wanted to get revenge on those responsible for his daughter's death. The mysterious person promised to help him. This person was wearing a shirt with a superhero symbol. Li Tang's sister and parents rushed into the rented apartment, but they couldn't find him. They only found a letter he had left behind. Li Tang apologized to his parents for becoming a criminal and making many mistakes. He planned to go to Canada quietly. He hoped his parents would understand. He promised to become a good person and return. Li Tang sat in the car and checked the small amount of money left in his bank account. He watched the news about the two male students he had attacked and learned that they were a gang of bullies at school and had previously assaulted female students. He also tried to find information about the person with the nickname Only for Hero, but found nothing. Then he looked up the consequences of criminals failing to appear at the police station after receiving a summons. Li Tang rode the subway because he couldn't clearly determine where he needed to go. At this time, a chubby young man with glasses approached Li Tang and said, "I am Only for Hero. I'm not a weirdo. I'm here to help you." Li Tang then rode the same train with the chubby young man to where he lived. When Li Tang entered, he saw that the house was filled with mannequins of various superheroes saving the world. The chubby young man introduced himself as Robin and said he would be his trusted assistant. Robin showed Li Tang the profiles of all four people who had died at his hands. Robin explained that he and Sang Mook had brought Li Tang home that night. The cases Li Tang had committed all had one thing in common. The victims were all people who deserved to die. He didn't destroy the evidence, and the evidence simply disappeared. It seemed like fate wanted him to continue. Robin wanted Li Tang to serve justice with him. He now had about 50 million won. If Li Tang needed it, Robin would give it all to him. Li Tang only needed to cooperate with Robin. If they cooperated, Robin would help Li Tang escape his life of running away. Li Tang felt extremely hesitant upon hearing this. The next day, Robin continued to persuade Li Tang with various arguments. What they were doing was simply disposing of trash to clean up society. Li Tang had the ability to identify criminals, and yet his traces of crimes always disappeared. Robin kept insisting that their meeting was destiny. Li Tang then asked Robin, "You said you had two associates, so where are they now?" Robin said Li Tang had already met one, but they shouldn't have met the other. While Robin was asleep, Li Tang entered and opened a secret door. Inside were many files, cash, and various weapons. Li Tang grabbed a stun gun, put on his jacket, and went outside. Robin opened his eyes. Li Tang, wearing a jacket with the words "Only for Hero" on it, walked down a street when he unexpectedly bumped into a man in a suit, which rekindled his urge to act. Afterward, the prosecutor had finished drinking with his subordinates. He gave his subordinates a credit card so they could continue their karaoke session. The prosecutor, meanwhile, left alone. Later, Li Tang, posing as a driver, arrived to take the drunk prosecutor home. After the prosecutor received a phone call from his wife, he realized the driver had taken the wrong route. Unexpectedly, Li Tang electrocuted him. When he regained consciousness, he found himself tied to a chair. He begged Li Tang to let him go home because his daughter was only in middle school. He didn't know what he had done wrong for Li Tang Tang to treat him like this. Li Tang also didn't know what crime the man had committed to deserve this punishment. Then Robin appeared and plugged the prosecutor's phone, which contained pictures of his happy family, into a computer. Robin then cracked the security code and saw images proving the prosecutor's crimes. Li Tang went to the prosecutor's office and pulled out a weapon. The prosecutor then died in front of Li Tang and Robin, who were watching coldly. Li Tang's sister went to the convenience store to ask the manager about his whereabouts. The manager recounted Li Tang's behavior to her. Afterward, the manager went to the police at the investigation bureau and informed them that he had received back all the salary Li Tang had advanced from Li Tang's family. He also withdrew the lawsuit. A special investigation team was formed to investigate the recent mysterious cases. However, after 4 months, they still hadn't found any new clues. Therefore, they were disbanded and the investigation ended. The head of the special investigation team confirmed to Detective Jang that Kim Sang-mook was the culprit who killed the 2 male students. The case of John Ok was attributed to a different perpetrator, but Detective Jang insisted that these were serial murders committed by the same person. He would investigate it himself. Detective Jang began approaching Detective Kim to ask for his cooperation. When Robin opened the door, he saw Detective Jang coming to see him. Detective Jang presented the murder case files to Robin, asking him to analyze whether they were serial murders. After some consideration, he deliberately stated that these were individual cases because the weapons and methods of the crimes were very different. When Detective Jang asked about the prosecutor's case, Robin knew it was Prosecutor Gi. Robin recounted exactly how he was dealt with, as well as the location and number of stab wounds he received. At this moment, a delivery person arrived with food for Robin. Afterwards, Detective Jang called a colleague and told Robin that he had once again hacked into the internal system of Prosecutor A's office. Only they knew about Prosecutor G's case. Then he opened the door for Officer Kim to come in and take Robin to the station for questioning. But after the interrogation, Officer Kim told Detective Jang that Robin insisted he had read information about Prosecutor G online, so they had to release him. Then Detective Jang personally drove Robin home. Robin was sulking because he had been taken to the police station despite having no clear evidence, but Detective Jang told him not to play the hero anymore. He asked Robin to be careful. The next day, a delivery person delivered a block of tofu to Robin, and it was Li Tang. Robin said he had been targeted by a sharp detective. Robin asked Li Tang to stay safe. Li Tang went downstairs, and Officer Kim approached and asked if he often delivered food to apartment 307. At this time, Detective Jang and Zhang Jie were also sitting in a car nearby. Detective Jang recounted that Robin was a computer addict. He had previously tried to catch a murderer, but Robin had helped the killer escape. Therefore, he was very suspicious of the man. Officer Kim got into his car and reported to Detective Jang that the delivery man had just delivered black bean noodles to apartment 307. Detective Jang recalled that this delivery man had delivered something to Robin the day before, but now he claimed he had never met Robin, so he immediately instructed his 2 colleagues to chase after the Jungaroo delivery man. Detective Jang went to the apartment to confront Robin, barging straight into the house and asking, "Did you choose the victim for the killer's right hand?" Zhang Jie and the police chased after Li Tang, and they saw many delivery men in black appearing at the same time. However, only 2 vehicles had the Jungaroo logo. Zhang Jie decided to chase after one of the Jungaroo fast food vehicles that was speeding away. After chasing for a while, he finally lost sight of the motorbike. So Zhang Jie decided to find another way to intercept. The delivery man's motorcycle was blocked by 2 moving company employees, so Zhang Jie caught up with the delivery man. Meanwhile, Robin was kneeling on the ground, explaining that he didn't know Li Tang. Then Detective Jang repeatedly punched him. He then threw all the effigies at Robin. At this point, Zhang Jie brought the delivery man back, but it was someone else, not Li Tang. Now Zhang Jie received a call from the police chief, so he handed the phone to Detective Jang. The chief yelled at him because the video of him breaking into the house and assaulting Robin had been circulating on social media. Meanwhile, patrol officers were ringing their doorbells outside because someone had reported police assault. Detective Jang opened his computer and discovered that all of Zhang Jie's movements were being live-streamed online. Detective Jang found a small camera hidden behind a painting and confiscated it. At that moment, Robin was holding another camera and smiling triumphantly. Detective Jang lunged at him, but Zhang Jie stopped him. The delivery man also quickly left. 2 patrol officers rushed in to subdue Detective Jang. Li Tang returned to the fast food restaurant where he worked. He then packed up his belongings to continue his escape. He watched the video of Detective Jang beating Robin that was circulating online and smirked. Detective Jang, along with his colleagues and the chief, were severely reprimanded by the police chief. Afterward, Detective Jang packed his belongings and left the police station. Chief Park shared the same fate fate as Detective Jang. Lee Tang, however, continued his path of using crime to counter crime, believing it to be the path of justice. That day, the delivery man who had been mistakenly arrested by Officer Zhang Jie returned to the restaurant where he worked. There, he met a man wearing a police badge. The man wanted to inquire about Lee Tang's whereabouts and wanted to meet him. At this time, Ro Bin was changing Lee Tang's identity and getting him a new ID card under the name Lee Jiangsu. Ro Bin continued to entrust Lee Tang with dealing with criminals who were evading the law. A university professor seduced his student. When she became pregnant, he abandoned his responsibility, disposing of and burying his mistress. Very quickly, this professor was also dealt with by Lee Tang. Now, Lee Tang is working at a large supermarket to make a living. In this supermarket, there's a female employee named Zhong Ah. She always has a melancholic expression on her face. She is always wary and afraid of the gazes of the men around her. Because a sensitive video of her and her boyfriend had previously been leaked online, receiving a lot of attention from netizens, she had to leave home and move to this remote place to work, and also underwent plastic surgery to change her appearance. That day, while sitting at a bus station, she noticed that men were still constantly posting on forums, trying to find her whereabouts. They even knew she had had plastic surgery. Afterwards, Zhama wiped away her tears and went to meet her mother, who had come to Busan to visit her. Her mother went back to her room and gave her her old national identity card that she had just found. Zhama looked at the two identity cards and realized that she still couldn't shake off her past, even though she had changed her identity. That evening, Zhama took her mother to dinner at a restaurant. At that time, a young man was eating with his girlfriend, but he kept staring at Zhama, making her feel very uncomfortable. Zhama went straight up to the young man and said, "What's so strange about people eating? Why are you staring? Did you get excited because you saw the girl in the video chained up in real life? I'm the girl in the video, so what?" The young man then asked, "Did you used to go to Kongsong Elementary School? Are you Insan? We went to this elementary school together." After that, they sat down and had drinks together. Zhama spoke more calmly and told Sangmin about what happened. "What you heard me say earlier is true." They reminisced about their childhood and laughed happily. Then Sangmin took Zhama home and asked for her phone number to stay in touch, but Zhama said she felt more comfortable if they didn't see each other again. Sangmin watched Zhama leave with a look of regret. The next day, while at work, Zhama received a call from her friend Sangmin. Sangmin said he had contacted many of her elementary school friends, and that's how he got her phone number. Zhama seemed very unhappy about this. Sangmin said he was being blackmailed and didn't know what to do. He asked for her help. Later, Sangmin came to Zhama's house to confide in her, explaining that he had carelessly leaked a private video of himself and his girlfriend online and was now being blackmailed. He didn't dare face his parents anymore, and his girlfriend had already broken up with him. He asked how she had gotten over it. Zhama replied that every time a man approached her, she wondered if he had seen the video, so she couldn't get over it. Sangmin then held Zhama's hand and said it wasn't really her fault. She was doing very well. Zhama was very touched. Sangmin went into the bathroom and smirked. When he opened the door, Zhama told Sangmin to wait until he sobered up before driving home. Afterward, Sangmin slept next to Zhama, lying on the floor, but he was very restless and couldn't sleep. Seeing this, Zhama asked if he wanted to come up. The next day, Sangmin sat down to eat with his current girlfriend, his face beaming with satisfaction and delight. He then promised to work hard to earn money for their wedding. Officer Park took time off to visit Detective Jang, who was suspended from duty. He asked why Detective Jang wasn't answering Zhang Jie's calls. Zhang Jie then came to the house and apologized to Detective Jang, explaining that after the incident at Ro Bin's house, he wasn't disciplined. Only Detective Jang was suspended. He expressed his determination to catch Lee Tang and Ro Bin. Zhang Jie showed Detective Jang the camera footage showing Lee Tang had gone to Busan immediately after their failed attempt to apprehend him. Shortly after, the Professor No case also occurred there. Detective Jang also mentioned that the murders of drug traffickers and loan sharks had subsequently taken place in Busan, but they still hadn't caught the culprit. Zhang Jie then asked Detective Jang to come to Busan. Detective Jang and Zhang Jie went to the Busan police station and showed them Lee Tang's picture, asking for their cooperation in the search. But the police there said they were too busy investigating Professor No's case. They had currently identified someone who had a grudge against the victim, but they would do their best to find the missing person as requested. As Lee Tang was pushing his shopping cart into the supermarket, he overheard Sangmin talking sweetly and affectionately on the phone with a girl. Soon after, Zhang came out. At this point, Sangmin also ran up to Zhang and addressed her very affectionately. Now Lee Tang realized that this guy seemed like a bad person. Afterwards, the two of them got intimate at Zhang's house. When Zhang asked if she could go to Seoul with him, Sangmin hesitated. Then he received a text message and immediately put his phone down. Zhang sat up and went to open the phone to see. Sungmin's girlfriend had sent him a video announcing their upcoming wedding. Sungmin snatched the phone back. Jong-ah asked, "Didn't you come to me because you broke up with your girlfriend? What's your real self?" The truth was, after their first meeting, Sungmin had gone to a garbage dump and searched for a package sent to Jong-ah to get her phone number. He then searched for the leaked video of Jong-ah and watched it with lustful eyes. Now he admitted that he had lied to sleep with her. Jong-ah slapped him and asked, "Don't you see me as a human being?" They both started arguing loudly. Sangmin said, "You invited me first, so who are you to blame now?" Jong-ah threatened to tell Sangmin's girlfriend and colleagues about it. He then pushed the girl down, strangled her, and pinned her to the bed. He then used both hands to forcefully restrain her until she collapsed. Meanwhile, Jong-jae and Detective Jang were at a hotel in Busan when they saw a news report about a fire in an apartment. Lee Tang also heard the news and learned that the deceased girl was a 29-year-old temporary resident. Women in a nearby convenience store began discussing the incident, suggesting that the poor girl hadn't died in the fire but had been murdered. Some had heard her arguing with someone all night. At this time, the man who had previously come looking for Lee Tang was also present. Detective Jang and Jong-jae went to the Busan police station, but the police there believed Jong-ah's death was simply due to her being drunk and falling asleep without turning off the gas stove. But Detective Jang insisted it was a murder case. Lee Tang arrived at the supermarket for work and was informed by a colleague that Jong-ah had died in the apartment fire the previous night. Then, noticing the presence of a mysterious man, Lee Tang tried to leave, but the old man followed him. He abandoned his shopping cart, put on his coat, and ran. Suddenly, he saw Detective Jang entering the supermarket. Detective Jang chased after Lee Tang. He ran into the warehouse, but the stranger tripped him, causing him to fall. The man then asked, "Was the apartment fire caused by you? How could you be so careless? I have a lot to say to you." Lee Tang then ran out. Detective Jang ran in, only to find that Lee Tang had escaped through the back door. Jong-jae reported that someone had stolen the supermarket's surveillance camera footage. Detective Jang showed Lee Tang's picture to the supermarket manager, who learned that he had worked there and had changed his name. The stranger reviewed the camera footage from the hard drive he had just stolen and saw Jong-ah talking to a young man. Sangmin went to the hospital for a checkup, and the doctor informed him that he had gonorrhea. He had to take medication and absolutely must not have sex for a while. He intended to call his fiancée to inform her, but she took the blame first. She apologized to him. Sangmin immediately called her a bitch and announced they were breaking up. He went home and found a man waiting for him. The man showed him a police badge and said he was there to investigate Jong-ah's case. When the man said someone heard him arguing in Jong-ah's house, Sangmin admitted that he had slept with her that night. Afterwards, Jong-ah found out that he hadn't broken up with his girlfriend, so they argued, but he didn't kill her. The man clapped his hands once and took weapons out of his backpack. Then he choked Sangmin and kicked him. Lee Tang drove away and told Robin that he hadn't killed Jong-ah. He would be hiding in Busan for a while. Robin told them not to contact each other for now. If the feeling arose, he shouldn't act. Sangmin was tied up. The man was a police officer. He was looking for someone. He should have been here by now to deal with Sangmin. Then he threw Sangmin a piece of paper to write a confession on. He now admitted to killing Jong-ah. Sangmin picked up the pen and was killed immediately after writing his confession. The man began cleaning up the crime scene. The building manager advised people to turn off their stoves before leaving the house because there had been frequent fires recently due to people forgetting to turn them off. Robin and a police officer also went to the building to find Sangmin. When they knocked on the door, the man left. Jong-jae pressed his hand against the door to listen for a gas leak. Suddenly, a loud explosion occurred, throwing Jong-jae to the ground. At this time, Detective Jang and the Busan police chief arrived at the house to find Lee Tang. The police officer called to borrow the apartment key, but the security guard said it had been stolen. He then used a hammer to break down the door and found the room filled with fire extinguisher powder, and Lee Tang was nowhere to be seen. Earlier, Lee Tang entered the elevator to escape. When he looked in the mirror, the young man felt a chill down his spine. Fearing that he would attack the young man inside the elevator, he immediately stepped out of the elevator, surprising the young man. Then, the young man wearing headphones, carrying a fire extinguisher and a bunch of keys, entered Lee Tang's room and sprayed the fire extinguisher everywhere. He now confessed to the police that he stole the keys from the security guard's room and did it because the man was staring at him. The police chief also suspected that this young man might be an accomplice of Lee Tang, as he was helping him destroy evidence. Meanwhile, the mysterious man went home and injected a vial of painkiller into his stomach. Then he took off his gloves and proceeded to wash one of his hands, which was almost completely black. Jong-jae was in the hospital and called Detective Jang to inform him that he had seen the man. "He just walked past me, so I'm not not sure it was him. I'm sorry, but I secretly looked at your files. You should go see Ro Bin to investigate whether he and Li Tang conspired with that man." Detective Zhang then told Zhang Jie to rest assured. At this point, the mother scolded Detective Zhang for speaking too loudly and not letting the father and son rest. Then the doctor showed the two of them a consent form regarding whether they agreed to stop life support for the father. Continuing treatment would significantly reduce the patient's quality of life. The family should think carefully before making a decision. That evening, Zhang Jie decided not to stay at the hospital to tend to his injuries anymore and continued investigating the case. When Ro Bin returned home, he found the mysterious man in his house, destroying his gadgets. Ro Bin immediately asked if the gas explosion the previous day was caused by him. The man confirmed it and asked if Ro Bin still wanted to play the hero game. He said, "You used to call me the hero of the era." When Ro Bin said he wasn't worthy, the man hit Ro Bin. He complained that Ro Bin had taught him all sorts of tricks in the past. "I'm too tired to keep up with you, so I gave up. I want to meet the guy who's collaborating with you." Ro Bin said he still hadn't been able to contact him. The old man looked into Ro Bin's eyes and knew the young man was telling the truth. Then, he asked Ro Bin to arrange a meeting with the young man. He asked to borrow the book that Ro Bin kept in this metal box. Ro Bin tried to stop him, but the old man said there was something strange on the middle page of the book. Then he confiscated it and left. Ro Bin grabbed a baseball bat and threw it, but he ended up flying backward after being hit in the stomach by the old man. Meanwhile, Li Tang was hiding in an arcade to drown his sorrows. When he saw a long-haired young man playing at a nearby arcade, he felt a chill run down his spine. Li Tang stared intently at him, but Li Tang thought it was just an inaccurate feeling and left. Zhang Jie drove to Ro Bin's house to investigate. When he arrived at the town center, he was attacked by a mysterious man. Next, the man wrestled him to the ground. When the man realized Zhang Jie was a police officer and had come alone, he threw him to the ground like an object. Zhang Jie was then hospitalized with serious injuries. Detective Zhang went to the police station and found Ro Bin waiting, demanding to see him. Ro Bin said he only saw Zhang Jie unconscious and didn't know who the culprit was. Ro Bin showed him a file and said he didn't know the man had returned to Korea. "I thought he had nothing to do with me anymore. It's Song John, the one who attacked Detective John years ago. The gas explosion at my house was also his doing." Detective John replied that if Ro Bin had given him the complete file like this years ago, the culprit wouldn't have escaped. Ro Bin is always on guard and will reveal his true colors when things go wrong. "You're also cooperating with Li Tang, aren't you?" Ro Bin immediately said that Li Tang was different from him. Li Tang had nothing to do with this case. "If you help Ro Bin this time, I'll reveal everything you want to know. I'm sure you want to settle the score from the past too." Detective Zhang threw back the files and told Ro Bin to leave and not cause any more trouble. As Detective Zhang left, someone arrived to take over the position of department head, replacing the previous one who had been demoted. Meanwhile, Song John was sitting in a taxi. At that moment, a couple came out of a restaurant. While they were cuddling, a car pulled up. The young man loudly scolded the driver for not knowing how to drive. The driver explained that he should drive on the sidewalk. The young man heard this and cursed even more harshly. Song John, sitting in the back of the taxi, felt very uncomfortable. He then pulled out a business card that showed he was the director of an entertainment company. Shortly after, the young man collapsed on the rooftop. He had been lured there by Song John's fake business card. His girlfriend knelt and begged Song John to spare her life. Song John promised to spare her and asked her to behave herself from then on. He then asked her for a pen. She said she was an art student and didn't have one with her. Song John heard this and remarked, "An art student would draw my face clearly, wouldn't she?" The girl, flustered, explained that she attended a low-ranking school. Song John then obtained a confession from her. She admitted to causing trouble and being disrespectful to adults, skipping school, and using drugs. Li Tang returned to his apartment and checked the news, discovering that the long-haired man he had met at the arcade was a murderer wanted by the police. Detective Zhang went to the hospital and signed the consent form to end his father's life support. Then, sadly, he said, "Dad, please rest." At that moment, he received a call from Chief Moon, who had just taken office, requesting a meeting. Chief Moon went straight to Detective Zhang's house and presented Song John's personal information, along with a case he had just handled that day. The granddaughter of the chairman of Bujan Construction Company had been murdered. The superiors promised a promotion to whoever solved the case. Detective John was asked to return to work tomorrow. Ro Bin was also on his way to the construction company. He was then surrounded by thugs. Suddenly, he received a call from Li Tang and excused himself to go outside to answer it. Li Tang asked what kind of person Song John was. Ro Bin recounted that he had accidentally seen Song John single-handedly subdue two thugs to protect a vulnerable person. Therefore, he approached Song John to ask for his cooperation in bringing justice to the world. After hearing his story, Song John burst into tears, but but he didn't expect Song-jan to become increasingly ruthless and deranged. Ro-bin realized he had misjudged Song-jan. Lee Tang immediately asked Ro-bin to let him meet Song-jan. Ro-bin ran inside to inform the thugs that the plan would be slightly altered. Song-jan was reviewing the confession he had obtained when he suddenly received a message from Ro-bin informing him that Lee Tang wanted to meet him. Song-jan then video called Lee Tang and gave him directions to the meeting point. Ro-bin and the thugs from the construction company were also secretly monitoring the situation from above. Ro-bin could also track Lee Tang's movements. Following Song-jan's directions, Lee Tang arrived at a deserted nightclub. Lee Tang saw Song-jan sitting comfortably eating an apple. Ro-bin, sitting in his car, loudly demanded that the thugs follow his directions. The ringleader felt quite annoyed. Then Ro-bin also led the thugs to the scene, but the leader demanded that Ro-bin be kept behind because he disliked Lee Tang's attitude. Ro-bin was then tied up by them. Lee Tang sat down to talk, and Song-jan asked if he had a special intuition when interacting with the people he intended to deal with. What exactly was that intuition? But Lee Tang remained silent. Then Lee Tang asked where his book was. Song-jan said he hadn't finished reading it. Song-jan told Lee Tang not to trust Ro-bin too much. Lee Tang only needed to make one mistake and Ro-bin would turn against him. The way he held the book was proof of that. Song-jan invited Lee Tang to cooperate with him. There were many more people out there to deal with, but he didn't have enough time or energy. Song-jan told Lee Tang to think carefully and call him. As soon as Song-jan left, Lee Tang grabbed a knife and attacked, but Song-jan easily subdued him. Then, Song-jan kicked Lee Tang and repeatedly slapped him in the face. Song-jan now concluded that Lee Tang seemed to have no chivalry at all, but was just an ordinary murderer, and that he deserved to die. At this moment, the thugs entered, so Lee Tang quickly sat up and escaped outside, seeing Ro-bin tied up. Lee Tang cut the ropes and asked why he was holding the book. Ro-bin explained that he didn't suspect Lee Tang, but that he had his own plan. As Lee Tang walked away, Ro-bin continued to explain to gain Lee Tang's trust. Lee Tang, trembling, said he was scared. Then he burst into tears and heard gunshots. Inside, Song-jan had shot one of the thugs in the face. He announced to the others that he still had 5 more shots. He challenged them to advance. The leader then pushed his henchmen forward. They also attacked with clubs and managed to hit Song-jan a few times. But then another thug was taken down by Song-jan. Then came the third. Another one was shot in the face. The remaining thugs began to surround and attack relentlessly. But this old man was too formidable, and yet another one was killed. He used a knife to continue fighting. Then he fired another shot. There was still 1 bullet left for the remaining leader. The commander received a phone call from the leader reporting that he had run into an alley and escaped. This leader was being controlled and manipulated by Song-jan. The leader also confessed that the chairman had told them to capture him alive. They would eliminate him in the same way he had done to the chairman's granddaughter. Song-jan then asked if the girl was a student at art school. Later, when the police arrived, they only found bodies scattered on the floor. Detective Jang and his colleagues reviewed the CCTV footage and saw that Lee Tang had come out that evening and given Ro-bin a sign. Ro-bin had also brought the Bujan Construction Company's men to this location earlier. A police officer intended to investigate at the company but couldn't get inside due to a protest. At this point, the surveillance footage captured Song-jan getting into a taxi on a street. The police went to the neighborhood and inquired everywhere. The man said he had never seen the old man. A man said that a group of thugs had come to ask him about the old man earlier. Now Song-jan was standing on top of a house, watching the police and the thugs searching for him. Later, the police found Song-jan's whereabouts, along with many blood-stained letters of repentance. Ro-bin asked Lee Tang to follow him and informed him that Song-jan was about to be arrested. They would go to a place where they would never be caught. In fact, he had a plan. Other issues would be handled. They just needed to go to the warm south and plan for the future. Lee Tang also agreed to get in the car to escape with Ro-bin. The department head at Bujan Construction Company went down to the basement parking lot and discovered someone was following him. Then his phone rang. The caller was Song-jan. He had been beaten up by Song-jan and asked where the chairman was. Now, Detective Zhang and his colleagues were analyzing who Song-jan might be looking for. The place where Song-jan appeared was not far from Bujan Construction Company, so the possibility of him going to see the chairman was very high. The police also reported that the chairman was in a very private place, so Detective Zhang immediately asked his colleagues to follow him there. A girl called the bodyguards outside. The chairman wanted to be alone, so no one should come in. She was being held captive by Song-jan. The chairman was tied up with his eyes closed. The bodyguards, after finishing their phone call, thought he was probably just trying to drown his sorrows with girls the same age as his deceased granddaughter. The girl was now slumped on the chairman's lap. When the chairman woke up, Song-jan began listing all the crimes he had committed. He frequently brought business partners, officials, and politicians to this place to socialize. He had also been convicted of tax evasion and embezzlement, yet he lived comfortably in prison and was released not long afterward. How could he possibly be a role model for his granddaughter? It was only natural that she died. The number of people who died because of his house demolitions must be in the tons. How furious would their families be seeing him on TV? And tomorrow, the chairman will be on the 9 o'clock news, but he probably won't be able to watch it. He deserved to die. Songjan picked up a pen when he heard someone entering. Detective Jang pointed a gun at Songjan, but Songjan pointed a pen at the chairman's neck, threatening to cut his artery. When Songjan continued to spout nonsense, Detective Jang squeezed the trigger to scare him. Songjan looked at Detective Jang and said, "Is that you? You met me at the police station when you were little. Now you've become a detective, huh? Interesting. Are you trying to get revenge on the person who smashed your father's head? Shoot." Detective Jang was furious, but Songjan acted first and was arrested by the police shortly afterward. Chief Moon regretted that if the chairman were still alive, the case would have been perfect. He predicted that the media would surely be thrilled with the story of Detective Jang catching the criminal who had left his father in a vegetative state. If interviewed, he said that they had done their best to save the chairman and expressed some grief. Then he announced that he would request a transfer of his father to the police hospital for treatment. Detective Zhang then watched as Songjan was escorted to the station by the police. Robin and Li Tang stopped at a rest stop to sleep for the night. Robin recounted that when he was a child, he woke up to find his parents murdered by a burglar. The police came to investigate but couldn't find the culprit. At that moment, he realized he needed strength to do this righteous deed, but his physical strength was too weak. His body wasn't strong enough, so he decided to borrow that strength to do this. Songjan was escorted to the police station by the police. He asked to have his handcuffs loosened a little because he couldn't breathe. He then showed off his blackened hands and said he had diabetes and high blood pressure. The police were so frightened that they tried to unlock the handcuffs with a key. Songjan then bit the officer's hand. He used the handcuffs to violently strike the driver and 3 officers in the car. One officer pulled out his gun, but Songjan snatched it away. The car then overturned on the road, and the person who crawled out was Songjan. He also stole the gun and successfully escaped. Li Tang and Ron Bin were eating at a restaurant when they heard the news report that serial killer Songjan had murdered 2 officers on the way to the station and then fled. The police believed this crime was not an isolated incident, but possibly organized. They identified 2 suspects who may have met Songjan. It's possible that all 3 of them planned the murders together. Songhan was studying when his girlfriend showed him the news. When his older sister read the news, she immediately called their mother. The mother fainted on the spot from shock. Li Tang could no longer remain calm. Ron Bin then suggested that Li Tang cross the border to a warmer country. Ron Bin arranged for 2 people who provided border crossing services to meet at a dental clinic he knew to discuss the matter. Ron Bin said he didn't know where else to go besides this place. Then they began discussing the route to cross the border into China by boat. Songjan slowly walked outside and deliberately left his phone on a truck to mislead the police. Later, the police discovered that Songjan's phone was switched on, so the patrol officers chased after and stopped the truck. They then found the phone that Songjan had left behind. He was now mixing up clothes to put on to avoid attracting attention. Later, as Li Tang was driving to the port, Ron Bin received a call from the dental clinic. When he picked up the phone, he heard Songjan's voice. The dentist was now kneeling on the ground. Songjan asked Ron Bin to meet him at a factory in Osan. He said, "Remember, I still have the book I borrowed from you." Ron Bin finished the call but decided not to tell Li Tang. He then announced that they needed to separate to get to the port because it would be dangerous to go together. He would take a bus, and Ron Bin went inside to find a suitable bus. Li Tang took Ron Bin's phone, downloaded a GPS app, and entered his number. Then Ron Bin boarded a bus, while Li Tang boarded a passenger van. Li Tang was taken to a port where someone on a motorcycle arrived, handed him a passport, and told him to wait inside until evening before departing. Li Tang held his Chinese passport in his hand and read a letter Ron Bin had left, informing him that he wouldn't be able to go with him and asking him to take care. After reading the letter, Li Tang picked up his backpack and went outside. Songjan, carrying a bouquet of flowers, went into the hospital where Detective Zhang's father was being treated. His wife, hearing a strange noise, went outside to investigate. When she returned, she saw a bouquet of flowers on the table and someone sitting in the hospital room. Soon after, she lay motionless beside a jar of medicine. Songjan was also sitting beside her. Detective Zhang went home and found Ron Bin there, saying, "I'm here to arrest Songjan." Detective Zhang let Ron Bin into the house and asked, "Who are you to want to arrest him? You've connected with those 2 scoundrels, Songjan and Li Tang. So many people have died because of your sick ideals." Ron Bin also asked why he let the chairman die in front of him. Then Ron Bin promised he would help them catch Songjan. Song-Jan, because I understand him best. But Detective Jang has to agree to one condition. At this moment, Detective Jang received a call from Officer Kim. Detective Jang immediately refused Ron Bin's offer of cooperation before answering the phone. He was extremely shocked to hear the news about his parents' condition, so he left the house. Ron Bin followed him. Detective Jang arrived at the hospital and found his father had passed away. Officer Kim informed him that his mother was fine and would soon wake up. They would arrange the funeral for his father. Detective Jang looked sad, walked past a basket of flowers, and then ran out quickly. A subordinate officer reported to Officer Kim that Detective Jang hadn't returned the gun, which worried him. Detective Jang got into his car and checked the gun in the glove compartment, then immediately drove Ron Bin away, but he was blocked by Chief Moon. Ron Bin lay down to hide. Chief Moon offered a few words of condolence to Detective Jang. At that moment, two colleagues were running out, so Detective Jang sped away in his car. The two tried to chase after him, but it was too late. In the car, Ron Bin repeatedly begged Detective Jang to let Li Tang go. He was very different from Song-Jan and special because he left no evidence. Ron Bin promised to help him catch Song-Jan. Ron Bin said he didn't care what happened to him, but he asked Detective Jang to spare Li Tang. The detective knew that those Li Tang had harmed deserved to die. This video was found on Prosecutor Gi's phone. He was the culprit in the missing girl case. Detective Jang stopped the car, got out, pushed Ron Bin down, and said, "Do you think you're a god or something to dare to judge people? Do you have the right to decide who deserves to die?" Ron Bin retorted, "Isn't Detective Jang trying to catch Song-Jan because of a personal vendetta?" Detective Jang immediately said he had a reason for doing so. Ron Bin continued to request cooperation to catch Song-Jan. Ron Bin said he would accept any punishment once they caught Song-Jan. Li Tang stole the car from the illegal border crossing agents to leave, but after driving a short distance, the car broke down. He decided to go find Ron Bin. He eventually reached his car and drove away. Ron Bin now went to the abandoned factory that Song-Jan had pointed out to meet him and begged him to stop. Song-Jan noticed the uninvited guest and called for Detective Jang to come out. Song-Jan told Ron Bin that he was just being used by this detective for personal revenge. He had spent his whole life trying to catch me because I smashed his father's head. Detective Jang replied, "I came to kill, not to catch." Meanwhile, outside, Li Tang arrived using the location tracking app on Ro Bin's phone. Song-Jan asked Detective Jang to thank him for helping his father get freed. Detective Jang picked up his gun. Song-Jan told him he didn't have the eyes of a killer. Now Li Tang appeared, making Song-Jan very excited. Suddenly, as the lights flickered on and off, Song-Jan, with his gun already in hand, pulled the trigger. He then began a gunfight with Detective Jang. In the flickering lights of the abandoned factory, Li Tang suddenly ran up from behind and repeatedly struck Song-Jan. Ro Bin also ran to help Li Tang disable the gun. Detective Jang then began to aim and pulled the trigger. The bullet hit Song-Jan in the stomach, but Ro Bin also took a stray bullet from Song-Jan's gun and died instantly. Li Tang cried and asked why he had appeared. "Why don't they go their separate ways?" Song-Jan said that people like them are very necessary in this world. "I wondered why you managed to solve so many cases. Is your ability real? Are you and I any different?" Detective Jang immediately told him to shut up. Song-Jan said, "Your mother isn't any better. You think your mother had an affair with me in the past? No, you idiot. It was Chief Park. Your mother had an affair with him. He used to be a close associate of your father. They started seeing each other when your father was in a vegetative state. Now, just kill me. But if I die, you'll never know why your father ended up like that. Do you want me to tell you? I used to be a gentle, hard-working police officer under your father. No matter what I did, he always looked down on me. I tried my best to train hard and studied diligently to gain your father's trust. But in his eyes, I was just a clumsy fool." That day, a staff member at the police station's cafeteria was preparing to return to China, so I went around asking colleagues to contribute money to help her. I also asked your father to contribute, but your father ignored me and asked me to give a bag of goods to that female staff member. I went and gave her the donation money and the bag of goods. She said your father asked me to give it to an acquaintance in China. That day, I was watching the news on TV about a case. A Korean Chinese woman was caught by Chinese police illegally transporting drugs from Korea to China. That was the bag of goods your father had sent. Your father had stolen confiscated drugs that had been stored for over 5 years. He had taken advantage of that naive woman. I went to see your father to ask if the female staff member would be released, but your father immediately shirked responsibility and even scolded me. His father pretended not to know anything and kicked me. Then he used thuggish methods to lecture me, even mocking me for being the son of a murderer. He said it was thanks to him that I became a police officer. I was grateful to him, and I also knew that he always tried to hinder my promotion. I started to fight back and asked why he did that to me. In his father's eyes, I was nothing more than the son of a murderer. So I decided to do what his father thought of me. I hit him hard on the head with a stick. I only stopped when his father collapsed. Lee Tang felt goosebumps on his neck as he listened to the story. Song Jian continued to manipulate Detective Jiang, saying that his father was the one who had brought me to this state. His father was a corrupt police officer. His mother was a promiscuous woman. Lee Tang tried to grab the gun to eliminate the old man for Detective Jiang, but Detective Jiang questioned how he was any different from himself. Song Jian seized the opportunity to attack Lee Tang, but Detective Jiang coldly finished him off. Lee Tang then promised he wouldn't run away again. Afterwards, a memorial service was held at the police station for Detective Jiang's father, honoring him as an exemplary police officer who sacrificed his life to protect the safety of the people. Detective Zhang glanced at Chief Park. Zhang Jie had also recovered from brain surgery. Unfortunately, the image of a police officer with decisive and accurate words from the past had faded somewhat. Detective Jiang accepted disciplinary action for killing the wanted criminal Song Jian. Chief Moon stated to the media that the criminal Song Jian had killed more than 30 people and 2 police officers in the past 5 years. He was shot dead by the police during a pursuit. Song Jian's accomplice, Ron Bin, had also passed away. He had killed 5 people. Detective Jiang recalled Ron Bin, saying he would do anything to make him the culprit. The police raided Ron Bin's house and seized many murder weapons. The evidence completely matched the 5 previous cases the captain told Detective Jiang. Professor No's case occurred during a torrential downpour, so they couldn't find any DNA traces. But did the culprit leave teeth marks on the persimmon? On the day Ron Bin died, the crime scene was burned, but the police recovered his teeth marks. The structure of Ron Bin's teeth and the suspect in Professor No's murder were very similar. This was because Ron Bin had previously asked his dentist to alter the structure of his teeth to match the marks on the fruit. The captain showed Detective Jiang a picture and said that Lee Tang was also present on the day Song Jian and Ron Bin died. That evening, Lee Tang asked Detective Jiang to personally end his life to end everything and admit that what he had done was not justice. Detective Jiang pulled the trigger like a gun, but there were no bullets. He then asked if he thought he was truly different or just lucky. Now, whether he fled or surrendered was up to him. Someone would catch him, but not me. Then he left. The warehouse had short-circuited and caught fire. Lee Tang tried to pull Ron Bin out but couldn't. The book of crime and punishment had been burned to ashes. Lee Tang had once again had all evidence erased. The captain then asked Detective Jiang if he thought Lee Tang was involved in the case. Detective Jiang pondered for a moment. Later, a prosecutor approved the decision not to prosecute Lee Tang. Officer Park and his wife and children moved abroad. As he walked away with his wife and children, he saw the young man Lee Tang, whom he had investigated before, walking by. Lee Tang is also in this country and writes letters home regularly. He also did manual labor to make ends meet. One day while walking home, Lee Tang was approached by immigration officers. He was then detained along with other illegal immigrants. The immigration officer held Lee Tang's real personal information in his hand and wondered why this young man, who was not a criminal and had no prior convictions, had immigrated to the country. Lee Tang was surprised to hear this. Later, Lee Tang boarded a plane back to South Korea and began the process of reintegrating into society. Now Detective Zhang is shopping when he sees a news report about a man who was murdered last month. However, it turns out that he was the perpetrator of several shocking crimes 3 years prior. Detective Jiang finds this unusual. That day, Lee Tang was walking down the street and bumped into a young man, and the feelings from the past resurfaced within him. The film ends here. Thank you for watching. See you in the next videos.